This is a hammer drill, and this is an impact driver.
When these two have a baby, their baby looks like this. This is Makita's 18-volt LXT brushless cordless 4-function hybrid hammer impact driver drill. Yes, that's a mouthful. And as far as I can tell, is the only tool available like this in the world today. So in this video, we're going to try to answer the question, should you get one? To answer this, we're going to talk about this product's features, specs, usability, pros and cons, all that good stuff. We'll also compare it to its parents here. And then lastly, we'll talk about whether or not this tool is actually a good value. I've actually been looking for this holy grail of drills and drivers for a long time now, and I've never found anything like it. Now this tool has actually been out for over 4 years, but if you search the internet, you're going to have a hard time finding it unless you know exactly what to search for. Let's take a look at some of the specs. Starting with the hammer mode here, the hybrid actually has a higher max RPM than the hammer drill, and it can actually deliver more blows per minute or BPM than the hammer drill as well. When it comes to torque in the impact mode, the hybrid here delivers 1,330 inch-pounds, and that's compared to 1,500 inch-pounds on the dedicated impact driver. When it comes to the speed, again, the hybrid lags a little bit behind the dedicated impact driver. This one peaks at 2,700 RPM compared to 3,400 RPM for the dedicated. Same thing with the impacts per minute. We have 3,200 for the hybrid and 3,600 for the driver. So those are pretty respectable numbers. It's not quite as strong as the dedicated machine here, but it gets pretty close, and it does that while giving you all the features of the drill. Really not too shabby. In my mind at least, one of the more important features of a drill is how heavy is it. This is one of the reasons I love going to my impact driver, because this small head and compact body makes it quite light, so it's a lot less fatiguing when you're using it all day. This is a great little tool, and they're almost always lighter. So let's take a look. I'm going to use the same 4 amp hour battery with all of these. On the impact driver, we've got 3 pounds, 7.7 ounces. If we switch this off to the drill, this is the full-size hammer drill here. Then we've got 4 pounds, 2.5 ounces. And then finally, on our hybrid tool, move that over a bit. This one comes in at 4 pounds, 1.3 ounces. So it's definitely lighter than the drill, but not by a ton, and it's a fair amount heavier than the impact driver. So that's one of the things that's a little bit of a trade-off between having the functionality of the drill and the driver in one versus a dedicated tool. Length is something else worth considering because, again, getting into tight spaces is easier if the tool isn't quite so long. So we've got a measly less than 5 inches, right about 5 inches on the impact driver. Not bad at all. Here on the drill, we're at 7 1/4, and then on the hybrid, we're at 6 3/4. So about a ½ inch shorter than the drill and a good deal longer than the impact driver. Now this is probably a good time to bring up the elephant in the room, and that is the recessive gene factor. Apparently the 1/4 inch hex chuck is the dominant gene here because there is no keyless chuck on this thing. And that obviously affects the length and the weight of it. So without that, that means there's a lot of things that are off limits. You cannot just grab any chuck or any bit, that you want to use with that, and sometimes that's a real downside. The fact is, 1/4 inch hex bits almost always cost more than their non-hex counterparts. One of my favorite tool sets to use is this set of bits. This is the Harbor Freight cheapo drill bits, and it has every size drill bit from 1/64 to a ½ inch in 1/64 increments. And I use these all the time. I have 2 sets of them. I have other drills because there's no warranty on any drill bits. They're going to break and they're going to go away and they're going to get dull. Yes, you can make them last, but the cheaper you can get your drill bits, especially decent quality ones, the better. And using 1/4 inch hex is going to add some cost to your consumables, unfortunately. Not much you can do about that. Now there is one thing you can do about that, and that is you can use a Makita adapter like this. This is a 3/8 inch keyless chuck, and it fits into a 1/4 inch hex. So I can now place this right in here like that, and it's not the same ½ inch capacity that we get on the dedicated drill, but it's 3/8 of an inch, and it works just great. It's going to lock in every time and do a really nice job. It's all metal, it's well built, and it is, again, an additional cost, but I think worth having if you're going to go with a hybrid like this. Now besides the cost of it, there's some other issues that you're going to have to look at. Let's take a look at the length now. So if I grab my tape here, if you remember before, we were at about 6 3/4, and now we're nearly 10 inches, about 9 3/4. This is a really long tool here that's not going to fit in many areas that you need to work in. The other issue, of course, is weight. So if I bring my scale back out here. Oh no, you can see behind my secret wall. All right, let's see what this is with the 4 amp hour battery. Now we're at 4 pounds, 11.1 ounces. So that added over a half a pound of weight just by having this guy on here. So it's a little unwieldy, that's for sure, but it does get the job done if you're in a pinch, and most of the time, hopefully, you won't need to use the chuck and can just use the 1/4" hex. If you or a loved one are as dorky as me and enjoy the DIY dorky t-shirts like this one, feel free to check those out in the links in the description below. You can also check out that little shopping bag in the corner and pick one of those up directly right there. Now, whether you're a fan of having the 1/4" hex chuck over the keyless chuck or not, maybe that's a pro or con to you, but there are some other pros and cons about this. The biggest one, I think, is one tool, right? You don't have to carry around these 2 different tools. Going right along with that is having one tool means less weight in your bag, makes you a little bit more portable, and it's just more convenient. Other pros that are worth mentioning on this one are the fact that despite being 4 years old, at that time, not a lot of the impact drivers had the features that this one does as an impact driver. For one, you've got your different levels. So if I go to my impact driver mode here, you've got my 1, 2, and 3 levels. So I can adjust the torque and speed, which can be pretty convenient at certain times. And then also I can go in my drill mode into the P mode right there. So I go to 89P, and then that is basically a self-tapping screw mode. That means I can take a self-tapping screw, it will give it all it's got once it gets through, and once it's sunk that screw, it kind of clutches out basically, and as you're squeezing that trigger, nothing's happening, which is exactly what you want to see happen. So you're not gonna overdo it and strip those self-tapping screws. For cons, I've kind of already covered this. I think it's a con to not have the keyless chuck on here and only have the 1/4" hex option. I consider that a con, maybe you disagree. Another con is that there are fewer clutch graduations or increments on here. So as I'm going, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then that self-drilling or self-tapping screw version or mode. And that's 9 modes. I took the average of all of the different brands of drills I have, and I've got quite a few. I think there were 14 of them that I've got, and the average is about 19. It's like 18.79. So typically most are gonna have 19 different graduations. This one has 9, and that makes it, I believe, the smallest number of increments that any of these drills have. Speaking of the settings on the clutch, it's maybe a little inconvenient that I can't use the clutch settings here on the barrel, that I have to use this button down here because it's unidirectional. I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, P, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I want to go backwards, I went too far, I've got to go cycle through the whole thing again. Not a huge deal, but it would be nice if it was just up here. In fact, I would love it if they just said, you know, driver here is the last one, and then you go through your different settings. Even if there were still just 9, that'd still be an improvement over having to go through the menu here. And yes, I have one more con that has to do with the clutch itself, and that is the fact, this is kind of the biggest one to me, is that the clutch not only adjusts the torque, but it also adjusts the speed. So if I'm in level 1 here, so right here, I've got the trigger pulled all the way down, and that's as fast as it will go. If I go to 5, and finally up to, let's go to 9, it'll give me full torque, and that's actually P. So 9 doesn't give you quite full torque. The self-drilling version does until you reach that sufficient resistance. So I don't like that it kind of controls how much actual speed you get in addition to the resistance that it's going to stop at. In most drills, like for example on this one here, if I go to all the way down to 1 and put it in my driver mode, I got full speed right there. Now if I go to 13 or 15, same thing. I can drive as fast as I want to and it will stop whenever it needs to. Whereas on this one, I can only drive as fast as that torque setting allows me to, and then it's going to stop wherever it needs to. Not a huge deal, but I can see if you're using this day in and day out that that would get pretty old. Now there is one more con, and it might be the biggest one. It's the bombshell con in my opinion. But before we get to that, let's put these head to head. So let's get to testing. I've got some 6-inch power lags here. These are 1/4 inch thick. I'm going to run 2 in each end through this 4x4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that seemed too easy. Let's up the ante. I've got some 5.5-inch massive lag bolts here, and I'm not pre-drilled or anything. I'm just going to drive each of them in, see how it does. Okay. All right, not burning, but not able to do the job. So, I mean, this thing didn't even come very close. We've still got 2 or 3 inches hanging out there that it didn't get to. Yeah, a couple inches more that it could have gone, and obviously didn't come out the bottom or anything. So, kind of showing its weakness there when you're trying to drive something big like that. This guy felt like it could have just kept going for a while, and this one just seemed to be struggling. I'm curious though, I'll bet that the impact driver could finish this thing off. Let's give it a shot. Interesting. Okay. So this guy is not really able to finish it off either. Next up, we're going to use this 1 1/4 inch Diablo Speed Demon bit. This has the self-feeding tip on it, and this should pull itself right on through here. Let's see how it does. We're going to use the standard drill versus the hybrid, and the hybrid has better specs in general than the drill when it comes to regular drilling. So let's see how it goes. Something just made a popping sound. Okay, it's not the drill bit. That's good, I don't think. I think that was just the sound of it cracking through the bottom. Oh, we got to stop already. Oh, it's not liking this. Oh man, it's just bogging. Okay, go baby, go. Nope. I don't know if it's going to make it, and I am definitely smelling burning going on in there. Yeah, that's all I'm going to get out of that, I think. So it made it about halfway through, maybe a little bit more than halfway. No one likes to smell that when they're using their power tools. You don't want to smell the smell of your tool dying on you. Next up, let's test out the hammer drill function on both the dedicated drill and the hybrid. Looks like the dedicated drill did a faster job in that case. I tried to put a pretty even amount of pressure on both drills, and this one just came out a little bit ahead. There's no doubt that in this case the drill has more torque and is more powerful than this as a drill, and that the driver definitely has more torque and is more powerful as a impact driver than the hybrid is. There are definitely more tests that I could put this through. I could try drilling through metal, I could try decking screws, and in fact I've got a bunch of that stuff that we can try here, but I think we saw the limitations of the hybrid versus the impact driver or the drill. So there's definitely a lot of strength to it. It does a pretty good job. I would consider this something that actually works pretty well for DIYers or for contractors who are doing some general work, maybe handymen and things like that. But if you have some pretty grueling and aggressive jobs that you need to do, then the individual drill and impact driver are going to give you more power and more torque to do what you need to do, and more speed as well. So this is really nice to have as just a standalone tool, so you don't have to buy both. And that brings us to our last thing, and that is cost. So the cost for this guy right here is $295 for the bare tool. Almost 300 bucks for the bare tool. That's quite a bit of money, especially when you consider that I bought both of these for $279, and they came with 2 4-amp-hour batteries and a bag and a charger. So I got all of that for $279, and as you saw, these two guys both outperform the hybrid in each of the tests that we've done so far, and I think if I just did more and more tests, we'd see more and more of the same results. So you really got to want just one tool to get a hybrid like this. That said, I am super excited and hoping that by having a tool out here like this, that the other brands will take note and will try to make something like this that comes in at a more affordable price point. So I would say if you already have a Makita lineup, you've got batteries, you've got everything like that, and you're the type of person who's looking to do one tool for your different jobs, then this could be a nice investment there. If you're buying it by itself without having had batteries and that kind of thing, this is a lot of money to get into something like this. So it was fun to test, fun to see, but I'll be using this one because I have it, but I wouldn't necessarily run out and buy it unless I already had a Makita lineup and had those specific circumstances that I needed. What do you think? Is this something that you'd buy or put in your toolkit? Is it worth it to you? Are you the type of person who might actually really benefit from that despite the cost? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Be sure to check back in next week. I've got a really fun video I've been working on. I'm actually comparing all of the 18 to 24 volt cordless drills against each other in a whole slew of tests to see which one performs best. And honestly, I'm hoping for an underdog win here. I'm hoping that a little Harbor Freight guy like this or one of the other underdogs will actually perform quite well, especially given the price. So I'll be doing a value comparison on these as well based on how well each performed compared to its price. So check that out. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so. I'm Nils with Learn to DIY. Thanks for watching.